Hello, hello, fam. It's your girl, Natalie, the Keto Bikini Pro. Tonight's topic is a hot topic. Fat loss is always a hot topic, but particularly tonight, we are talking about advanced strategies for fat loss. So, I will be giving you my opinion on some hot topics in the keto carnivore space as it relates to fat loss. I will just give you a little teaser right now what those are, and then encourage you to stick around for the whole thing because I'm going to share my advanced strategies with you first. And then we'll get into answering some of these questions in the group about these hacks that y'all have heard about. Some of the questions, and they were: traditional long-term carnivores advocate to eat till satisfied and eat fatty beef like ribeyes primarily. How are they able to do that and stay trim and fit? Whew, I definitely have an opinion on that one. And then strict carnivore eating to satiety fat loss process. How is this accurate? Most gain doing this. So those two are all along the same lines. PSMF, which is the first thing I'm going to get into tonight. And then carb cycling and low carb versus keto. So different levels of carbs when you get into that low carb space. I'm going to be getting into that before I even dive into these other questions. And then some of the ones that really get me going, and it is sardines for fat loss. First things first, as usual, I always like to lay a foundation before we dive into the topic. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into the topic of the night, which is advanced fat loss strategies. So first, I just want to break down, what do I mean when I say advanced strategies? How are these fat loss strategies I'm going to be talking about tonight different from what I generally advise? Okay, so typically, what I always recommend and where I always lean is away from anything extreme, which is kind of funny to say because I live my life basically as a carnivore. And for many people, they consider carnivore to be a very extreme way of eating or dieting. I don't do carnivore for dieting, for fat loss. It's more of a way to optimize my health and my life. So that, take with it what you will. Those of us who have struggled with chronic health issues know the freedom that so-called restrictive diets brings to us. And so these kinds of diets in the low carb space, paleo, keto, ketovore, carnivore, anything in that realm of dieting is, for most of us who have chosen it, it is the way that we can live our lives to the fullest, feel our best, function our best, have our lives back that were taken from us with chronic illness. So within the low carb template, I would say I never advise anything extreme, meaning major drastic changes to what you're doing quickly, or you're going from eating 3 or 4 meals a day to fasting for 24 hours. Anything like that, where you're going from one extreme to another, I would call a sardine fast pretty extreme. And then the things that I'm talking about tonight, these advanced strategies, some are more extreme than others. What I typically advise for the majority of people is small, sustainable changes over time, nothing drastic overnight. Why? Because drastic changes are a stressor to the body, especially the female body. When the body is under stress, it does not function optimally or well. Important functions are ignored or shut down as the immune system ramps up and goes into hyperdrive to deal with the attack. Homeostasis is disrupted. What the heck is going on? Immune ramps up, digestive system goes down, basically downregulates hormone, endocrine system. What happens when you're doing these things, going from one protocol to another protocol? I tried that, now I'm going the other direction. When you're doing that all the time, meaning you stay on something for a few days or a few weeks, and then you decide to jump ship and try something totally different, which I see constantly in our space, your body has never been able to find a new normal. You haven't given your body enough time to adjust. Men can go from standard American diet to fasting or carnivore overnight, get amazing results, and not have the issues that we end up having with our adrenals, with our cortisol, with our blood sugar, with all of these things. Men don't have that same level of sensitivity to changes as women do. Why? Because biologically we were created to carry the human race, right? To reproduce. And so we basically need to be much more careful and strategic about what we do and do things in small doses to help our bodies adjust as we go and not cause additional stress. So rather than a lot of the typical things that other people recommend, like in the fitness space, the typical 500 calorie deficit, because 500 calories times 7 days a week is 3,500 calories, and that's 1 pound of fat. And so that's what you need to lose body fat as soon as we start working together. We go slower. We might do 200 calorie deficit after we've spent time figuring out what your proper maintenance level is. Fasting protocols is an extreme measure. Using an online calculator to tell you what you should be eating, or an app, a nutrition tracking app, and plugging in your age, weight, height, whatever else they ask you for, and having it spit out numbers for you to follow to tell you what you need for fat loss, a lot of the time is going to be far off from what you actually need to be optimal and still get fat loss. So using a TDEE calculator, which can be a powerful tool to learn at maintenance what you should, according to these algorithms, be eating to maintain your current body composition. A lot of you will be surprised if you do a TDEE calculator that it is a lot higher than what you've been eating, because you've been trying to sustain a very low calorie consumption over a long period of time and you've downregulated your metabolism. A lot of my ladies do that and they figure out, oh my gosh, I should be able to eat 2,100 calories. No way, I'll never get there. I'm eating 1,100 now and I'm gaining body fat, right? But when you just go to these calculators that give you your macros and your calories, a lot of the time they're using formulas. It's just that they're based on the general population and numbers that you give them. It's not based in reality, in day-to-day what you're actually doing. Always start everyone with real life data. So what I recommend for all of you before you decide on any protocol whatsoever is to not change a single thing that you're doing. Just eat the way you've been eating. And if you have been off the wagon, binging, you need to plug every single thing that you ate in your binge into your online calculator, not your online calculator, your nutrition app. You don't let the app tell you what to eat. You just put in everything you're eating while eating intuitively. Do that for a couple of weeks, ideally even longer, but most people are in a rush. At least 2 weeks, ideally more like 4 or 6 or 8 weeks, and watch the trends. But a lot of the reason why y'all hear about things that work for other people and you're wondering, like, how is that working for them? It's not working for me. Or I don't understand how that works. A couple of the questions that I got, especially about like the high fat carnivore, you don't know their body composition. You don't know what they're doing for their training and their exercise output and things of that nature. So when you're looking at your own data, you're thinking you're off somehow, but you're just not understanding the full picture of what another person is doing that might be getting them different results than you are. And then you're comparing yourself, which is the worst possible thing you can do. It's going to get in your head and make it worse for you. Another big thing that happens is I'm stalled, I'm in a plateau, only because the only thing you're looking at is weight. And I'm going to share my low carb cruise presentation with you all because I shared a lot of client stories on that. And I will tell you, so many of my clients and our members in the academy have gotten incredible body composition changes, meaning they have lost body fat and they've gained muscle and the weight is the same, including myself. You can look at pictures I've put out there on my Instagram and Facebook of my body at the exact same weight, 8 years apart, but completely different body composition. And it looks completely different, but it's the same weight. If all you're focused on is weight, you don't care how you get it off. So I always start with real life data and then we make small, slow adjustments over time to elicit fat loss at a healthy, reasonable rate. All of this is the reason why I have never taught a masterclass on these advanced strategies for what I would consider rapid fat loss. So before I dive in, let me just forewarn you, I do not recommend these strategies for all or most people, and never, ever, ever before taking the slow, steady, sustainable route. first. I will get into the who should or should not try these strategies, when to consider using them, and then I'll break down the how to use them properly and safely. So basically, what am I actually talking about here? So what I'm talking about is different ways of undulating calories, undulating food quantity, undulating fuel quantity, fuel consumption through modified fasting and other forms of what I'll call calorie cycling or fuel cycling. Some people don't like the term calories, but it's just the same thing as fuel or energy. The big first one that I want to break down is PSMF, protein sparing modified fasting. This is a modified fast, which essentially you are fasting except for protein. You are basically only eating protein and then very low amounts of essential fat just to get a bare minimum dietary fat just to try and sustain your body's function at the lowest level. Okay, so a PSMF would look very much like practically zero carbs. It could be 20 grams of fat, 30 grams of fat, depending on your size, your caloric maintenance, things of that nature. If you're curious about the actual numbers and you want to look at what would it actually look like in numbers, check out Maria and Craig Emmerich's website. They have a calculator for PSMF. I don't put stuff like that out because I don't recommend PSMF and I don't encourage PSMF. But if you want to check out the numbers, I would go there. They would be they are the foremost experts when it comes to the how to do PSMF. Who should do it? I highly discourage most people from doing it. And I'll tell you why. Just like I pretty much highly discourage fasting in general. There's nothing wrong with intermittent fasting, meaning you're eating in a condensed window of time throughout your day, as long as you are getting what your body needs in terms of adequate protein, adequate fat, and negligible carbs, depending on where you are in the spectrum of low carb. Why I don't recommend long-term fasting, meaning anything more than like a 16-8 up to 24 hours or longer, or modified fast like PSMF, or pretty much any other fast you've heard of, is because particularly with PSMF, it is extremely low calorie. And with actual fasting where you're not eating at all, it is 0 calorie. You are not putting anything into your body. You are starving yourself. That is what you're doing. Let's call it what it is. Fasting is starving. You are going to starve your lean tissue. You're going to starve your muscle mass. You are going to starve, and muscle mass is not just skeletal muscle mass. It's not just the muscles you can see like bodybuilder muscles. We're talking about cardiac muscles. We are talking about your organs are muscles. We are talking about the smooth muscles of the body beyond just skeletal. So we need enough protein to sustain and to build all the tissues of the body, including our organs. So the reason why protein sparing modified fast is a better idea than fasting. When I say who should do it, let's say you are dead set on fasting. You are going to fast no matter what anybody says. Doing a protein sparing modified fast would be a better option than just not eating. It came about as a way to preserve that very important muscle when you're not otherwise consuming food. So it's a way of giving your body basically the bare minimum that it needs, which the numbers would be, they generally recommend like your lean body mass anywhere up to your total body weight in protein, in grams per day of protein, and then baseline practically nothing of carbs and fat. Another issue with PSMF, and this is something I experienced myself, I tried it many moons ago, 8 years ago when I first started competing, and I was afraid I wasn't going to be ready for my stage date, and I needed to get that last little bit off, which sometimes is the part of PSMF where it may be recommended. Is for like an athlete who has a competition. I tried it. It totally screwed up my digestion, my bowels. I was constipated. I could not go. Fat helps lubricate and move the food through your system. Fat helps you digest your proteins. It is very important for that. So if you notice that you're constipated and you eat more rendered fat, particularly the liquid fats, you will notice things will start moving through you again. It can also be very exhausting. You're not going to have energy because you're not giving your body any exogenous energy. You are just tired. your body is doing a lot of work to break down the food you eat, which is one of the reasons why I recommend high protein diets in general, because it has a higher thermic effect. So it takes calories, it takes work to break down the protein we eat. You're now expending more energy just trying to break down the protein. You don't have the fat to get moved through, and you're only using your body's energy to make that happen. So yeah, you're going to be tired. You're going to be exhausted. You might be hangry. You're not supporting your body's hormones. All the things that fat does in the body. How is fasting starving your body if you have plenty of fat for your body to feed on? The same way that a caloric deficit works, right? The same reason you can lose weight in a caloric deficit, which is the mechanism for fat loss. To achieve fat loss at all, at any rate, slow or fast, you have to be taking in less than you're burning. Sorry to say it, but calories in, calories out is a thing. It's not as simple as people make it seem, because a lot of people have issues with the calories out portion of that. And that is why a lot of the time people will say calories in, calories out is wrong. It's not wrong. It's just more complicated than it seems on the surface. So in order to lose body fat, you have to starve your body of energy. That's what you're doing in a deficit. That's what you're doing in a fast. It has to, for your body to actually want to open up the fat cells and release the fat and then burn it and use it for energy, it's not starved of an energy source. However, our bodies also need amino acids to sustain themselves, sustain all of the functions of our body. So when we don't have we are now fasting, we're not putting anything into our bodies. We're not giving our bodies nutrients. So food is so much more than just fuel. Whole foods are protein, fat, and carbs. Yes, they are macronutrients, but they also are full of micronutrients. And when we are not getting nutrition, meaning the actual nutrients from our food, we cannot function optimally. We're not giving our bodies what it needs to function well. So when we're fasting, consuming any protein and without consuming any nutrients, now we're in a dangerous position for our bodies. And while you may be able to handle that when you have a whole lot of excess body fat, still doesn't make it optimal. It still doesn't make it healthy, especially when you can do the same thing without having to go to that extreme. Now, can it be used though? It could be used in a way that it could be helpful within a less extreme overall process of fat loss, or a cutting phase, as I like to call it. In the bodybuilding world, we call it cutting, when you are cutting calories, cutting body fat. So when we're in a fat loss phase, if you're doing it the healthy, sustainable way, and it has slowed to practically a stop, which happens, here's the thing. In general, when you hit a plateau, a lot of the time, it's not that big of a deal. A plateau is actually a part of the process. And if you just continue on the plan, and this, I see this all the time with my clients, if they don't stress out over the plateau and they just keep doing what they're doing, they will drop through that plateau and keep going without needing to go to extremes most of the time, just staying on the plan we have. Or we will, the way we do things, we slowly cut as needed. So we will stay at a macro level, calorie level, as long as you are getting progress until you stop getting progress, and then you'll drop through, and then we'll take another small cut, and then you'll drop through. That's exactly the way I do it for competition prep. And I can tell you, like clockwork, it works every single time without needing to do any fasting at all, modified or otherwise. It's just slowly cut the fuel and continue to drop through every plateau. That being said, if you're getting frustrated with the slow loss and you want it to happen a little bit faster, the way I would recommend utilizing a PSMF, 1 day or 2 days a week, and this could be at any phase of your fat loss phase, you might opt to do 1 day of PSMF once a week, and the other 6 days, keep your food nice and high like you normally would. That 1 day in that 7-day period is going to give you a deficit. So that could be a way. The reason why I call these advanced is because every person is unique, and some people do just fine cutting a couple hundred calories at a time. Other people feel like they're dying as soon as I take away 10 grams of fat. They can't handle it. Or let's say you've been on a fat loss phase for a while, we've been cutting your calories, and now you decide to throw in 1 day of PSMF a week because you don't want to go any lower the other days of the week. There's kind of no limit to the way you could split that up. What I don't encourage is consistent consecutive days of a PSMF or fasting of any kind, really. Because now we're getting into that. You're not giving your body enough nutrition. Here's the other thing about protein. Yes, it's amino acids. Yes, it's giving your body the building blocks. But most protein sources that are very lean without any fat on them that you would be choosing for PSMF, we're talking whitefish, we're talking chicken, we're talking egg whites. Those kinds of foods are on the lower end of the nutritional totem pole. They don't pack a lot of micronutrition. So you're not getting those nutrients that you need. Practitioners of PSMF who encourage it, they will have a supplement protocol. They'll recommend that you do at the same time because they're going to try to supplement your micronutrition so that you're still getting what you need in the way of vitamins and minerals, essential nutrients that you're not getting through your food. This is also, by the way, when we're talking about fasting, there's a healing diet for gut health called the elemental diet. When you're doing like a gut healing protocol and you're taking herbals and antimicrobials and things of that nature, where you would do this elemental diet, which is just a drink or a powder that you put in water that you would consume that is giving you your nutrients while you're not eating food. So those are the kinds of things that you might need to consider when you're considering fasting of any kind. So these kinds of things were high fat carnivore or fat fasting and things of that nature. You are trying to basically give yourself nothing but fat or a whole lot of fat and not sufficient amounts of protein. Once again, you don't get a lot of your nutrients from fat. From fatty meats, yes, but it's not because of the fat. The nutrients are not in the fat of the meat, they're in the whole food. And then the fat can help absorb those fat soluble vitamins and nutrients, which is another reason why PSMF is not something I necessarily recommend, because you're getting protein without the fat to help any of the nutrition you need fat to digest vitamins A, D, E, and K, or to absorb them. The question I want to answer, how are these long-term carnivores able to eat high fat, moderate to low protein, and stay trim and fit? I will say the ones that you're referencing, I'm sure, may appear absolutely trim. They don't know what I would say about fit. And sure, they might be fit in terms of fitness, right? Physical ability. Absolutely. I'm not going to take that away from them. Fat is a fuel source. It's giving you a lot of energy. It's supporting your endocrine system. Fat does a lot of great things in the body, as does protein. So how are they able to do that and stay trim and fit? The ones that you're looking at, that the people that you're looking at that are very, let's say, thin or small or fit or lean or whatever you want to call it, I guarantee you they are underweight. And even though they may appear very muscular, it is because they are overall underweight. I can say this because I've been there. When I first lost the weight before I really started focusing on protein and muscle building, I looked like I had a lot of muscle, but I was 90 something pounds. I'm going to look like I have muscle when I'm that small. And I know I've seen some of these women, and I can tell you from a professional eye, they do not have that much muscle. It just looks like it on their very small bodies. I say that because maybe they've lost a lot of weight. Some of them have come into the carnivore life already underweight. They desperately needed to eat more food. They needed all that fat, and they need that fat, but they also need more protein. Now, the ones who are eating a good, adequate amount of protein and doing high fat, look at what their daily activity looks like. I guarantee you, I'll say one, Kelly Hogan. Love Kelly. Kelly is very active, extremely active. I think she's been sharing recently like how many steps a day or how many miles she walks. She does CrossFit. She does high intensity activity. She weight trains. She does all of this activity. She's very tall. She's not a small human she's small in terms of her body weight. Her composition is pretty good, I would say, compared to most other female carnivores I've seen. And so you have to consider that. It's always so important, y'all, to look at a person's all the details, how they're living their lives. The other women that I can tell you for certain, if they're small, they are undermuscled, and that's how they can get away with that. The truth is they're still probably not eating a whole heck of a lot of calories. Some of them, I've seen what they eat. It might be one steak a day and some chicken wings, or it might be a couple of steaks a day and one of those might be lean and the other one might be a ribeye, it's just not a lot of food. It's not a lot of calories overall if you were to calculate. And they're probably doing a lot of activity at the same time. And that's why they're so small. So you have to just, whatever you're looking at and whatever you're considering, get more information about the person that you're looking at doing that and why you might be considering it for yourself, and compare and say, okay, what are they doing? Where did they start from? Understand what their results actually are. Most of the time in the carnivore space, nobody's looking at their body composition. They're only looking at weight, if even that. A lot of the time in the carnivore space, it's don't even get on the scale. Oh, I'm making progress and I'm eating more calories. So calories in, calories out doesn't matter. They're not tracking data. They can't tell you that definitively. It's all subjective. It's how they feel like they're doing at any given time. So get more data, ask them more questions specifically about their situation to understand. Also, another thing we do in the academy is reverse dieting. As I mentioned earlier, if you looked at that TDEE and you're like, oh my God, it's saying I should be eating 2,000 calories and I'm nowhere near that, because if for a very long period of time you've eaten very low calorie, you've downregulated your metabolism for you couldn't do what they're doing and still lose body fat. Most of the time when we're looking at what somebody else is doing and we're trying to apply it to us, we are in a different situation that they are. We were just on the low carb cruise. We were having dinner every night with a whole table of people. We had a guy who was pre-diabetic or fully diabetic. Yeah, type 2 diabetic, right? He was inquiring with Bronson about carnivore. Bronson said, well, here's an easy way to determine whether something's carnivore. Did it have a mother, right? The rest of the week, if Bronson or I ate something that was not carnivore, he would say to us, poking fun, did that have a mother? The truth is, we're not type 2 diabetic. If we want to eat something that has higher carbs, we're metabolically healthy. It's not going to have the same impact. So you can't just be looking at what somebody else does, and especially when somebody is fit, right? 1-to-1 strict carnivore eating to satiety. How is this even accurate? Most gain doing this. So you would be eating, let's say if you're eating 150 grams of protein, you're also eating 150 grams of fat. How is this accurate? Most gain doing this. So 1-to-1, if we're talking about, for instance, right? I typically eat somewhere around 150 grams of protein a day. When I'm building in a building phase, I could eat up to 150 grams of fat, but that's more fuel than what my body needs. So typically I'm going to start gaining when I'm eating that much fat. But for somebody else who's maybe taller than me, has more mass in general or more lean mass, that may be a calorie deficit for them. That's the simple answer there, is that not every person has the same fuel needs. I would say that most of the time, if you are eating to the point that you are overstuffed, you're eating more than you need. You don't need to eat that much. Plus, it takes our body some time to recognize that we're full. So if a person eats really slowly, two different people may eat at different rates. There has been this really hilarious trend going around TikTok of women trying to pace their eating with their significant other, and men trying to pace their eating with their significant other, and women eat really slow and men are eating really fast. And it's so funny to watch this happen. But that's a good example. I got to get into the sardines for my girl Tiffany, because she wanted to hear my thoughts on the sardines for fat loss, right? This is the stuff. I love the whole all these things for fat loss. First, let me just break down, because hey, I have friends in the space that are doing the sardine thing. No shade, okay? No shade why they're doing it. Sardines are nasty. Not many people, some of y'all crazy freaks out there, love the taste of sardines. You are in the 0.1%, okay? Congratulations. I do like to eat sardines from time to time, but not because they're the tastiest thing I've ever had. They're not horrible, but they certainly would not be the only thing I would eat in a day. But the reason why people are doing that for fat loss is because if all they have to eat are sardines, they're not going to eat very much. That is what it comes down to. It is a way of not binging. The people that I've seen out there doing it still have a very hard time moderating food, even if they're eating carnivore. They will overdo it on, most of them are probably eating dairy, because that's usually what they're overdoing when they're overdoing it on carnivore. But they're overdoing the foods they're eating because they can't stop themselves because it tastes good. And this is the part about the whole thing that Dr. Chafee said about until it doesn't taste good anymore. Well, I could keep eating ribeyes all day. It's going to keep, that last bite is going to taste as good as the first bite did. for me. There are things that we all would just keep eating and it would never taste bad to us, right? Sardines taste good. You're probably not going to eat 5 cans, even if you're going to get sick of it pretty quickly. So that is their solution to, okay, I got to say it. That's what they're using as a solution, but it is not a solution to the real problem. There is a problem that they have with over-consuming food, not being able to manage their own consumption without doing something extreme to do so.
So different than doing 75 hard.
It's the same reason why a lot of people do carnivore, because they're like, when I'm keto, I overdo it. But when I cut everything out and I go carnivore, then I can stick to it. Anytime you have to do something more extreme to be able to do it, and let's be real, they're not doing sardine fasts for a year. You're not seeing a person do it. I don't know how long a person's actually done it. I know my girl Courtney was trying to go for 10 days. I think she only made it 7. So here's the thing. If you can't sustain it for more than 7 days, it's not working for you. Anything that only works short term is not actually working for you. So that's my thoughts on the sardine fast. And if you have any more questions or any other fat loss hacks you want to get my take on, drop those questions in the comments and I'll gather those for a future masterclass. Love y'all. Have a great week.